thank you all so much for joining us. I have a very dear friend of mine, Rocco Aceto, with me. And we really appreciate, Rocco, you coming and joining us. And he's going to give us shed some light on his experiences in swimming. He's an absolutely he's an amazing swimmer. You'll hear about that. And then he's also an amazing coach. And he has transferred so much great information to so many people. And so he's right now the head coach of Trinity Prep School and Trinity Prep Aquatics. Is that right, Rocco?
That's right. Yep.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Rocco, I've got to just tell a really quick story how Rocco and I met. And we got to be quick on this, but it was hysterical. So Rocco was 8 years old and I was 9 years old. We were swimming in the YMCA league in the state meet, which was our first time that we ever met. And so you'll get a little feeling. Rocco was always confident. I don't know if I've met anybody more confident than Rocco. So Rocco looks over. He was a little kid because he was 8, and he says to both of us, we're all sitting there with our cards ready to go, and Rocco grabs our cards, say, "Okay, I'm going to look at your cards, and I'm going to tell you how it's going to go." And he says to the guy next to me, he says, "Dow, you're going to be first. I'm going to be second, and Walden, you're going to be third." And, "Oh, did that encourage the 100 I am?" I said, "What are you talking about?" "Oh, I really didn't like him." And all of a sudden, we finished the race, and Dow was first, he was second, and I was third. So I got to beat Rocco's right a lot of times. And after that, it took us years to get together in nationals one time where your team was kind enough to bring me in. And you were kind of my nemesis at that point because of that one experience. And we ended up rooming together because of your team, because my team was trying to go down to Florida. And after that, I think after that, we became super close friends. Rocco was at my wedding. I mean, it's funny from going from that person that was really aggravating to me to one of my most beloved friends. Thank you, Rocco. So, Rocco, tell us a little bit about what built up to this. What got you started swimming?
It's a great story. It's learn to swim. My dad nearly drowned in Portland, Maine. He wasn't aware when he was a little boy, like 5 years old. Tides go out and they come back in. And he had a fear of the water. So every kid had to learn to swim. I'm from a family of 5. So we went to the local Y and learned how to swim. That's where it all began.
Wow. Fantastic. And you had success pretty much out of the gate, if I'm right.
I was a good age group swimmer, I guess.
Yeah, you were.
Back then.
I remember seeing you like in I think 100-yard race where you left everybody by, I think you finished a lap and a half in front of everyone. You had no chance.
That must have been in a 20-yard pool if it was a lap and a half. But yeah, those were good times. It was back with the Y and the AAU, and things were grassroots level, and there was a lot to learn. We didn't know anything besides racing.
You had a lot of good swimmers there too. Right? It was a great program that you were in.
Yeah, but we had the amenities. We had a 6-lane pool and a 4-lane 20-yard pool, only show in town. So there was a lot of talent to be honed. And if you look at sports back then, I think you had in the fall, you had football and girls field hockey. That was it. Sports were limited. The winter time, you probably had basketball.
Right.
And I don't even think we had soccer back then. We had ice hockey to compete with. So people swam. Lots of them.
Wow. And and I remember you guys had a great facility. We all had like 4-lane pools, and that was a big pool for us.
Good memory.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, because you've had so many accomplishments. I remember I actually was put on trying to recruit you to Indiana University when I was there, and so all the way along we had connections. And I remember I'd picked you up, and we were in Doc Councilman's car, right? I'll never forget that big blue Cadillac, right? So what are some of your favorite accomplishments in your swimming career that you've had?
I think as an age grouper, just representing Maine with you at the New Englands. You go from the States. It was the hierarchy of states, New England Y Nationals. And then when I kind of outgrew that, I think going to the Petty School, and I think the accomplishment of I was on a 200 medley relay at Mercersburg in a dual meet that broke the high school national record, and I anchored the 400 freestyle relay.
There you go.
With a couple friends that broke the national record, and then I think maybe in college, finally winning an ACC title on my own. We again won some relays, but I think if you look at those little pillars, those are
right. And I remember you're swimming in senior national. You've got every different level you were on pretty much, and did some amazing things. So you've had all this success in swimming. Let me just ask you a question kind of off the chart here.
Sure.
What does swimming mean to you?
The sport?
Yeah, I mean, you've been doing it since you're 8 years old.
Yeah, the sport is, I don't want to say a lifestyle, but it's a life of friends and opportunities. It never ends. It's a huge network. It's a spider web that you can't get out of. It's challenging to get out of.
And then you don't even want to either.
Well, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But when I think of swimming, I don't really think of the sport. You're asking me for my opinion at 56 years old. It's been a way of life, and it's a place to connect with people.
You went on, if I'm right, to coach Auburn in Auburn University. Is that right? And
I was an assistant there, yeah, under David Marsh back in 95, 6, 7.
And then from there you went on to be a head coach of.
I did, and I did it for different reasons. This is a good little story. I had great success prior to getting to Auburn on the high school level, and that's how I think I ended up there. Working for David was an opportunity to experience collegiate on the highest level, and we did. We did some great things. But I was newly married, and my wife Mia, she wanted to start a family. She wanted to buy a home, and so I was like, okay, I've got the NCAA ring. I help kids get to the Olympics. I help put kids, in NCAAs on the podium. That was all like the swimming crown, but I was being tugged hard on the life part. And so I kind of shelved it. We went out to Washington State University. My wife loved it there. I kind of liked it, but it was the end of the world, and you can see it from there.
Yeah, I remember you saying.
My wife is from Presque Isle, Maine, and that's the end of the world, and you can see it from there. And she loved it. Small little college town, and you go 5 years there. After a while, you can. That was my first lockdown, being in Pullman. But I bought my first home. My kids were born there, so that's kind of one of the pivotal moments of my life. And sure, the swimming stuff went well, but the life stuff, at some point, how sustainable is it to go recruit from a small little town to fly over to Seattle to fly to Houston, Texas? It's 5 years of that. You age quickly. So I regrouped, got in the stock market, became a little hometown swim coach, and waited for an opportunity. And I came to Trinity Prep, again, not for the swimming side, but for the life side. And my kids were offered free tuition. I could never pay that on my own. 6th grade through 8th, 9th through 12th. I have a great facility, and they have expectations, but they're not like in college. So I really used swimming to better my life and my family's life.
And training fast swimmers for you is pretty simple. It's like building blocks, if I'm right.
It's fun. I don't think it's that hard. You got to find talent. The first chapter is find talent, people who are willing to work. But then after that, John, it gets tough to have at this level. How do you get kids to move correctly in the water? And if they can't move correctly on land, they're going to have a very tough time in the water. And how do you make those changes? That's tough. That's where your company comes in.
That's true. We help a lot with that. And we do a lot of technique work with swimmers and help them understand how the water works. And we're actually giving a presentation coming up on the feel for the water and trying to define that so people can actually see it. So we animate it. That's absolutely true. Looking at what you needed along the way in swimming to build your capabilities, how would you say, how important, in your opinion, is the mental game during the race?
Well, I think that's all we had back then. We weren't taught everything that you know now, or everything that I've learned on my own. We were given volume, and it was all about how fit can you be. Well, there's a diminishing return. After a while, you can only be so fit, and so we played the mental game, like how tough can you be?
Right.
The problem, and I had it, and people have it, is when you become too cerebral, overthinking, like, how am I going to nail this turn, instead of just thinking, do my stroke count. If you keep it simple, and nobody taught us this, we had to figure it out by failing. But I think it's a huge component, because when I go to a meet and you look behind the block, everyone's fit, right? Everyone's trained pretty well.
Yeah.
I try to throw little tidbits out to my kids. I'm kind of addicted to buckets, power towers. And so I always ask the kids, if you're a little bit afraid behind the block, who else is doing towers like we are? You've got to have a little buzzword for confidence.
And it's that psychological edge, right?
Absolutely.
Got it. So you'd say, based on that, how did you train yourself, right? How did they train you from a mental perspective? So, right, if mental is such a big deal, right, and that's kind of the key, or one of the major key factors,
Right.
What tools did they train you with?
You mean as a coach, or when I was a kid growing up through?
When you were a kid, what tools did they use to train you psychologically?
I use visualization on my own. I used to love watching My World of Sports, and it's a combination of really wanting to win and being frustrated from losing. But I used to picture the races and get real amped up for meets.
So the visualization process. Did somebody teach you that, or how did that go?
No, self-taught, I guess.
And I've noticed from a personality standpoint that not in a negative way, in a positive way, you're a very dominant athlete. You think, when it appears like, again, you think that there's no one that can beat you. That's what it looks like when you find that block.
I kind of coach like that in a way, but confidence is one thing, arrogance is another. Arrogance, you really can't, there's not a whole lot of room for that. That's like not shaking someone's hand after, or that's
you've
not
never been like that, right?
Or congratulating somebody, or saying that's not a good swim. Confidence is just having the ability that, watch out.
Right.
It's
like you can project right forward that you're going to be able to accomplish this.
Yeah, and it's a lot to do with like body language and eye contact, and when you get behind the block, you kind of have a sense like, well, I think I can take care of these guys on the left and right, and the guy next to me is going to be real tough, but if I get out ahead, maybe he'll fold. That's all athletics.
Right.
It's
Yeah, right. I think that's more even in business, right?
Yeah.
In everything. Interesting. And so in what we do, and we actually provide tools nowadays so that swimmers can actually use them to gain those types of ideas and understanding of how to play that mental game and win it. So what we do in MindWorks is we help them increase their focus and their capability of focusing, how to harness their emotion to use it for them instead of against them, or do nothing for them, right? Because you really need to get your emotion behind you, because that's the most powerful part about you, what you want to accomplish. And then understanding how to progress faster. So those three things: the focus, right, and the progress, and then you have that harnessing that emotion to get that to move you forward. And I think if you get that, you learn a lot more about not only swimming but life, and you can use swimming as a microcosm to drive you forward in life, right? So you learn it there, and then you use it everywhere you go.
I think on the coaching part, I'm not as detailed as the toolbox that you have. And anybody listening needs to dive in your toolbox. Around the corner here, I have old Dr. Keith Bell books.
Yep.
Those are old.
Yep.
And I'll give them to my kids and say they're easy reading. But we'll do things like the night before our championship, we'll have I Believe night. And this is something I learned at NC State. And when you write I believe, and once you commit to either a quote or what your belief is, that's on you. And that's a scary feeling. Like, you got to own that. We have quotes where I make the kids, well, I don't make them. We enjoy watching Miracle on Ice during the championship season. And I have quotes in my office from Miracle on Ice. So we do a lot of there's a lot of visual signs out there that reiterate.
And self-belief, right? That ties right into the core of the human being, right?
The core. We
have these 5 categories of belief. One is, I believe I can do things that no one else can, right? Number 2, I believe I can do things that most people can't. Number 3, I believe that I can do what everybody else can do, right? And it kind of goes down that road. I would say, in my experience with you as a friend, as a swimming colleague, I think you believe that you can do things that no one else can. I might be wrong. I would put you in the number 1 category.
I think there's a lot of self-belief.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have your Bill Belichick game face on, because it doesn't always go right. It's always going to get deked or miss an event, or it's age group level swimming. But I've never carried myself meek and weak, and I think I was just raised that way. And I try to instill that to the kids here different ways. Like, we have some gaudy bling bling. Like, if you have a real good swim, I put the bling bling on your neck, and the kids get to walk around with that. I stole that from University of Miami football. Mm-hmm. But the kids love it, and I have to whistle at them, hey, give me the bling bling, we got another good swim. And because kids swim for 3 reasons, John, in my opinion. Socializing is number 1. Socializing and fitness is probably what I see the most in my program. And very few kids want to become great. And so if you can entice them with bling bling, or show them those books, Dr. Keith Bell, or those quotes that we have, you keep dripping on them, they'll start believing it. Right. And once a kid starts believing what they can do, you'll see the progress take it to the next level.
So we got a chance to show you a little bit about our fast track tools. You've been in there. You've known them for years, and I showed them to you years ago and how they work. When we look at things like setting goals in there, right, and it sets the goals for the swimmers very simply and easily. Getting their time splits. Like, how important do you think it is to get splits before you train for your race?
I think it's extremely important. What you're doing is you're setting up in today's digital kid world, you give them the tools to hold them accountable, which is perfect. Because I can say one thing and then I'm going to follow through. But if they have your product and they get in it, and they, for example, if you want to be under 140 and you're a boy in the 200 freestyle, you got to be at 113.5 at the 150. So what are you going to have to hold when we go repeat 50s on 115 yards? What do you have to hold? Well, yeah, you knew the math at 25 flat, that's 140. But no, what do you really have to hold to go 138.9 or so forth? Where, years ago you showed me, you put it into your software and it comes right down. And that's, what kids need to learn that. That's that's NC2A swimming that you're bringing down for kids. And that's what we think we do here pretty well. We have that NC2A experience and we bring it down to the kids, but yours is a whole new level.
So if they got it earlier, right, what could they do? We had to swim all the way up to that level and then get that information. If you can get it earlier, how much could that help us?
Immensely. Like, I've had success with female breaststrokers. I've had like 3 of them that have been 101 in the 100-yard breaststroke. And we always talk about you need to be 43.6, 43.7 hand touch at the 75. So what's that breakdown per 25, and how many cycles do you need to take? Right. And we adjust that. But your product, when we were playing with it the other day, it comes out almost exact. It's amazing.
And the next step from down from that splits program is where you get that cycle rate. And how important is that rate, would you say, like knowing that cycle rate?
Well, the kids should know that. It's interesting you should say that. This weekend at a long course meet, your stroke rate is a little bit different than um, short course. And how does it apply? I mean, you can just give a number to a kid, but then you have to explain yourself. Why should it be here? And data is non-threatening to these kids unless it's not an A in school or a best time. Those are threatening. But if you can come to their level the way they think, it wasn't like what we did, the mental part, get up and race. These guys, they're a little bit too cerebral, but it'll make life so much easier once they understand what we're trying to do, because then you can just coach them. Right now you're teaching them.
Right. And then one other thing that's in there, I mean, there's lots of things in there, the college program, things like that. But when you go into that cycle rate, we have what's called race map triangulation. And what that is so you get this race map from the fast track, and then you can videotape the swimmer as a coach, and you can say, okay, we're supposed to hit 1.25, and I see your cycle rate. So there's a little timer on there. You can see your cycle rate is hitting 1.25. And then we had John Mix on the show a little while ago with Denise, and he has a tempo trainer, and I think there's other. And so with the tempo trainer, you can set it to 1.25, and it goes beep, 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 and then you can actually train your sit-ups and your push-ups, right? So that your muscles contract at that rate. They get used to that. And once you have that, it's like a real game changer. We're actually going to be doing a show on how to actually do that for coaches, so that they can see how they can train. And it's a real game changer, because now the kids know, the coach knows, everybody's on the same page and working together. So from your perspective, just because you have such a, right, you've been in every different aspect of swimming pretty much. And you and I have had a lot of like similar experiences of how much we've, pulled in and absorbed over these years. If you were to stack rank these different aspects, what we call cornerstones, which one would you say is kind of like first, second type of thing? So we've got the brain, technique, strength, energy systems, which are like in-water training, or fuels like sleep, hydration, nutrition, oxygen.
Brain, then recovery, then everything else.
Got it. So can you tell us about recovery?
So when COVID hit, the first thing I did was said, this is great, sleep. All my weekly newsletter said, don't worry about working out. So we did that for about a month. Kids were sleeping 10, 12 hours. I mean, if kids are sleeping 10 or 12 hours every day, something we were doing prior wasn't good. To get up and be emotionally excited, mentally alert, physically able, you got to have rest. You got to recover. It's not about the workload. You have to do the workload. It's about recovery to prepare. A lot of people don't like that, but through my background following bodybuilding and track and field and swimming, it all points to recovery for kids. Right now, we are unable to do our Monday morning swim. We're unable to lift Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. We're able to swim in the afternoons and on Saturdays. And we're still maintaining junior national standards. Wow. And I think we're replacing the weight room with buckets. And if you look at an hour and a half sleep per day, or 2 hours, John, through a whole school week, that's a night of sleep.
So you had the brain there, and then second for you is fuels like sleep and recovery, right?
Oh, and yeah, eating right and making sure you drink properly. Everything we didn't do growing up.
Right.
Yeah. And then, technique, if you don't reinforce out of the water movements to deliver those same movements somewhat in the water, in any sport, it's tough to progress. Because when you swim fast, you're going to create more drag. To overcome that, you better have either better technique or create more force, which means you got to be stronger. We have a great strength program here. Haven't been in the weight room in a year, but I'm seeing that we can still swim fast. So I don't know how important it is. I thought it used to be at the top of my list. And then energy systems, it's between science and common sense. We like to swim fast every day.
Mm.
To swim fast, you got to be fast. And we warm up typically doing, well, this is a whole nother conversation. My opinion on drills. We do our own drills that the kids kind of make up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your breaststroke drill won't work for me. Why am I teaching everybody the same way? You know, drills kind of reinforce.
So the swimmers kind of own it a lot more that way too, right?
Yeah, this is a program where you own it. Mm-hmm. During warm up at a meet, I take off and watch. Mm-hmm. You have to know how to prepare yourself fast to swim. I'll guide you, but I can't warm you up. You're old enough. And
so what's happening is the person's starting to get a lot more ownership, a lot more intrinsic value out of that. And later in their life, this is going to pay off huge.
Yeah, that's how we grew up, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Through the Y League.
Yep.
I teach the kids, do not be codependent on me. Because I have a group of 20 kids. And if I'm down here working on backstroke starts and really you're a breaststroker, need pull downs and breakouts, those are two different things. Mm-hmm. So you got to be, well, I'm not watching you. You got to be working on that. This program, you take ownership.
I love that.
I direct it. My favorite saying now, instead of yelling, is, "You don't think I have anything to offer you?" When I say that, the kid is like, "Oh yeah, I guess he does," you know. But when we do drills kind of reinforce things like you kind of already know. So I had a kid the other day swimming a fly drill, and it was side breathing. And I said, "Kevin, what are you doing?" And the answer was perfect. He said, "I'm watching the pitch of my hand as it enters." And I thought that was great.
Right. And then you just go hand up. Great.
Yeah. And that's the stuff I want them to create stuff so they think. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll show them what I a couple of cool fly drills, that I think will work, but, to develop, show them how to anchor and, there's different water pressures and there's just so much you can play with.
And that conversation is so revealing when he said, you're saying, "What are you doing?" And then he comes up with his answer like, "You're very intelligent. I've been thinking about this. This is what I'm trying to get done." And then you can then see what's going on in his mind, adjust it for him if he needs it.
Yeah.
But he's, wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's NCAA coaching. Mm-hmm. So you bring that down to kids and they're going to get better by figuring it out, by thinking, we change paddles up. We use anything we can. I think years ago, I had a stroke coach here, Mel Nash, who was at Texas A&M forever, was in Orlando, and I'd send all my kids to him.
Yep. And
he would just tell me, "Rock, this is what we did today." And, we reemphasize the same thing in training. Because think about it. We have 130 kids in the water. I have 20. Mm-hmm. And those 20, I think I have 5 with junior national cuts. And then, there's a bottom level in that group that are good, Florida State senior championships or sectionals. And it's in a 2-hour time frame. How am I going to coach?
That's exactly what our company does. Is we come in as technique experts, or if you need brain work done, right, in the mental game or strength work, and we're able to do those exact things for the kids and what they need. And even if we're not able to be on site, and we do it over video, and then we also have our brain programs online that they can watch, and then there's also the Discovery Center, which this video will be part of. So you're going to be, your program is part of our, FM Discovery Center, and I think we have almost 300 videos in there now, building every single day, like it is today. And so kids can go in, and there's a whole learning section. What we're going to do, Rocco, is we haven't done this yet, but we're going to make it so that the coaches can go in and use the content in there to design their own program for their kids. So if you're in this level, I want you to watch these things in this order. If you're in this level, right? So they can kind of decide what they want their kids to watch and what's right for them.
So, that whole access to information, the way it works in my group, when a kid swims a race, like we were just at sectionals, mm-hmm. and if you were swimming the 100 breaststroke, your buddies to be watching you, and the comments you hear, they're correct. Like, his kick isn't narrow enough. He's not holding enough water with his kick. His arm, because his arms aren't sweeping up far enough. If you can teach these kids, we never come out and talk about good swim, go warm down. We talk about, the first thing I say is, okay, John, how'd you hold up? And I want to know arms or legs, and that gives me information. Maybe they worked too hard that week, or you try to figure that out. And then I'll say, okay, so where do you think you could clean this up? What 2 or 3 things? And normally they get it.
And even if they set the world record, they can answer that question, right?
I would imagine.
Right? It's all right. You're okay. This is what I could have done better.
Yeah. And then after learning all that, it comes down to fortitude. We can go back earlier, the whole mental game. Some kids don't like to race. Some kids just like to train.
Right.
I mean, that's just the way.
Do you ever get kids that they're great at training, but then when they go race, it's not there?
Yeah, I like the other ones. I like the racehorses.
Yeah. So the emotion, that's where our emotion section is really key on getting that emotion. So when you pass through what we call alpha, right? When you're going from cool mode, like logical mode, like we're in, to hot mode, where you're emotional, right? And doing those things, we give them a visual to understand how to transfer and transition into that.
And that's very important. I label it as today's society. Kids are very cerebral, too cerebral. So if I'm swimming 100-meter free, how many times do you hear, "Oh, I'll die"? Well, you're not going to die. That's a swimming term, right? But why didn't you dare to get after it? Trust your training, the process, and you'll swim fast. But a lot of it is, if they're a 5,300-meter freestyle for a guy, how do you get them to go 50 point? I mean, that's a big, you can talk about 1% each week or 1% a month or a season, but some of these kids, if they don't get an A in school, well, they get redos. They can do makeovers, and there's grade inflation. And then, people say, well, why do you broker your swimmers out? Well, each kid here has a tutor to get their grade up. So that's their safety net. Swimming, in sports, they fail. The goal's going to get blocked, or they're gonna double dribble, and they think it's the absolute end of the world. And I like that if you're competitive, but it's the end of the world because they think failure is doomsday, and that's, I struggle with that. Like, what's the big deal? Get up and race.
Right. There's a big deal between failing and being a failure, right? Every one of us have failed. If you're ever going to become great at something, you're going to fail. You're going to learn from those failures, and you're going to get back up, and you're going to, right? But it's the ones that fail and then fall and sit and wait for somebody else to pick them up. You got to look and say, what did I do wrong? Where can I go with this? And you start studying that. You turn to your coaches, right? You turn to experts, things like this, to get that information. What do I do to get this done? Because every one of us can get better.
If you want to.
So, what do you say from this standpoint? What's more important in your opinion, passion or performance?
Oh, passion. Listen, John, you got to love or like what you do. You got to, if you love it, you'll be great at it. If you like it, you'll be good at it. And then that passion, you got to be competitive. You can't just be, if you're great, that, you'll be excellent. If you're just good, you'll get by, but passion's everything. That dictates the performance.
Right. Changes everything.
Yeah, that's all we are. We're basically performers. I mean, think about it. When the whistle blows and you're behind one of the 8 blocks, you're by yourself. I mean, you got to go back to what we're talking about. You got to have the confidence. You got to have the passion that I'm going to enjoy this race. Right. The performance, if you're next to, I mean, how many world-class swimmers did you swim against that you either touch out or they touched you out? It was just touch that, or I mean, you're all, there's a lot of parity. But you got to have passion, man. If you don't have passion, you're in trouble. And
yeah, you're just kind of floating there waiting for something to happen. Passion, I think it drives the energy, right? That a lot of people describe it as positive energy. Sometimes it's positive mixed with negative, right? But it's an increase in energy, right? And so you may know what to do and the steps to take to get there. But if you don't have the energy to make that happen, and you want to go to great places, it's not going to happen, right? But if you have all this energy, but you don't know the steps to go, you're also got, right, it's just going to spill out everywhere.
Yeah.
So you need that combination of the energy combined with the knowledge to get from here to there, right?
And for performance, for me with these kids, the age group I coach, I just look for consistency in performance. I'm still baffled at like when you were in high school and you're going 58 and 100 breaststroke. How can someone go 107? And I'm like, dude, you're a 58 breaststroker. I mean, how can you be so far off? It means your optimal swim is 58. But if you start training and go double O's at swim meet, short course yards, 59, you're probably going to go 56.
Right. So if you see something like that, you're either looking at a swimmer that's sick or something like this, or coming down with something, or there's something really off. They started slipping, or, something like that, because you're looking for like a maturity. It seems like in that athlete, right?
And racing more than less helps that. And in this COVID time, we've been very fortunate in Florida to have a lot of. Now we sanction our inter squad meets, but we did a lot of unofficial, just to keep the kids on par. Because what are you training for? Right. I mean, I love the performance part because meets are fun and exciting, but you got to have passion to be a competitive swimmer. Oh God.
Got it. Man, this is fantastic. I could have you back on like 10 times easily in the next couple of weeks. It's so great. And then I have to, it's funny, Rocco, because we know so many of the same people through the years. And we've had a number of them say they want to do an interview with me and you together. And so I think we've both picked one that wants to do that. And hopefully we'll have another interview within the next little bit with the three of us. We actually didn't swim on the same team at the same time, but I swam with him, you swam with him, and now we all know it's got to be great. We'll have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll look forward to that. Thank you so much for joining us and for giving us some of that expertise. I know that's like a drop in the bucket for you, but thank you. Really,
you're welcome. Keep doing what you're able to do to help us in the sport. You're doing great things, and you've been doing it for decades.
Thank you. I really appreciate it, and we're hoping that we can build this community, this swimming community, to places it's never been built before. More swimmers that are going to get more out of it, and like you said, almost like a lifestyle that help them, and they have this great network of people that it's a really healthy type of environment.
Right.
Okay. Thanks again.
All right, John. Take care, buddy.
Take care.